Yo, what's up guys? Markel here, and today we're going to do a Q&A session. Question number 3, how do I show my passion for a job? And I should have got some more clarity on this, but I think that the assumption I'll make here is aspirationally, like how do you show passion for a job? Like you're not in the role, but how do you present yourself to want to be in that position? And yeah, that's a good question. So for me, what I always kind of talk about is this idea of implicit versus explicit. So you can explicitly say what your skill sets are, what you're capable of doing, like technically, right? And then you have to kind of implicitly say what the passions, all of those things. Like you can't say that like explicitly, in my opinion. Like it's not effective. You have to be able to imply that through what you're saying. You have to show the actions that you've taken, right? Because that will better demonstrate your interests way better than you saying, I really, 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 really love this company, or really, really, really want this job. Because your actions are going to speak louder than your words, that whole thing. It's going to boil down to like, what have you done or what are you doing in order to get in this role? You don't have the role yet, but how are you developing to be in this role? So in my opinion, it's just like, one, being able to just understand what the role is. You have to do that research and really understand like what you're getting yourself into as much as you can. And so ask people, learn about it, and just become familiar with it as much as you can. And then once you do that, then number 2 is make sure you're developing to add value in that space. So if you're really passionate, right, it's not just memorizing a couple of facts or a couple of stats. Like I did that back when I was in college, and I would memorize a bunch of random facts about a company, and I could go in there and say it was founded in this year, the founders are these people, and the first product was this. It's like, that's cool, but it's deeper than that. That's assumed, right? If you're interested in something, if you're interested, you'll know some basic information. But if you're passionate, you will have analyzed it to a deep level. And so that's how you can express really your passion, is by being able to find ways in which you can add value and develop towards that, and then critically think within that space, within that domain. And so for me, I was kind of lucky in, not lucky, but I really did care about and do care about sustainability. So I've been researching sustainability like in high school and throughout college. I took courses on it, and that was always kind of like a recurring theme. So when I say like I was passionate about, or I'm passionate about sustainability, it was not that I said it, it was that I listed the things that would imply that, right? So I would say I interned at these companies because I wanted to do this, and this was work on sustainable projects. Then I worked in automotive because the ultimate goal was to work for an electric car company. And by talking about what I did with the undertone of like my passion for sustainability, you can piece it together and not necessarily have me try to convince you, right? It's kind of self-evident. Question number 4, you seem like a person who values being creative in your work and your life. I'm seeking advice on how to maintain creativity in my work, as sometimes it is harder to be individual in projects. Do you have any advice or tips that you have that make you original in your everyday workflow? And so I actually messaged this person back already, and I think they found this valuable. But yeah, I thought this was a really cool question, and also it's like a compliment, right? It's like I definitely do think I am, or I work towards being a more creative person because I work on music on the side. But yeah, so like I had a friend tell me this, and so I'm stealing this from him. But it's essentially this idea that constraints require creativity. I'll just read what I have here because I feel like I said it really well here. So there's definitely a limit to that, but let me explain. You're given a project that is completely open-ended. You think, great, I can explore my creativity and freedom and do anything I want. While that's true, it sometimes can be overwhelming. With a few constraints, you're able to bound the problem statement and refine what you can create. With a lot of constraints, you now enter a new challenge of figuring out how to be creative despite the circumstance. It's like having your hands tied behind your back. All that said, in another way, sometimes the creativity comes from the deliverable or the product, and other times it comes from the methodology and the execution. The advice I'd say here is exercise creativity constantly. It's a mindset, and you can't let someone confine your mindset. Kind of an abstract answer, but I hope this helps. And then on a more practical front, I'd say be creative in other places. Don't rely on one place to exercise your creativity. It has to get out or it'll dwindle. Find your outlets. So yeah, that's essentially like almost verbatim the message that I sent, saying like, hey, you have to be able to find your creativity, and constraints require more creativity. And I'm starting to learn that too within like music. Is just like once you constrain yourself within like a key, or once you actually understand how to create constraints, then you realize that constraints are actually more liberating because they give you that freedom to be able to work within a space, right? They're kind of like that anchor that allows you to then go off and deviate instead of not being tied to anything. And then your creation can almost be too creative or ineffective. The last question that I will answer is any advice to make myself a more attractive candidate? And yeah, so I definitely have some advice on that. So the first thing I would say is, when talking about the resume, is highlight your most relevant contributions at the top of your resume. I often see candidates or students reach out to me and like they say the most important thing about themselves at the bottom. I once had a student who had an app, like he had a startup, and that was like the 5th project that he listed. I was like, that should be like the headlining thing, like launched an app on the App Store or something like that, right? Whatever you think is the most unique, most differentiating thing, most involved, those are the things that you want to highlight on your resume. That probably reflects your genuine interest and your genuine skill sets. And if you try to appeal by listing like big names or big things like that, that may resonate or connect with some recruiters or employers, but more times than not, like they probably aren't gonna be like hyped by seeing some specific company names. They're gonna be more, compelled based on what they actually see on the resume, as far as like the content, not just like the name of things. So yeah, like highlight your most relevant contributions. And if you're in college, find a job you want now, like find like that job description or whatever online now, and see how far you are from being able to get that position. I mean, if you are a graduating senior, this may be a little bit difficult, but if you're pretty much any other grade, freshman, sophomore, or junior, and you're trying to figure out like, hey, I want to work at this company, and you don't know what to do, like look at the job description and just like start taking those lines and say like, what class is that? What project should I work on to get that? And like take those job descriptions to professors, take those to your guidance counselors and say like, how do I get this thing? Because I want to be able to get this type of job. Because like I say type of job because it's probably not going to be that same job when you graduate, but you'll be moving towards developing in that space, as opposed to kind of just going on the website and saying like, well, I'm not qualified for any of this, so I'm just going to do this kind of random coursework and random projects in hopes that maybe I'll get closer. And so it really kind of like, for me, I'm all about intention. So it's like, be intentional about what moves you make and how you're actually developing. It's not just like haphazardly taking classes. It's all about being able to like get closer to whatever that goal is. And so, yeah, just ask someone for help. Don't just kind of look at the job description and let it in there. Like really figure it out. Another thing I do is I try to create, like when I was in college, I would create like a perspective resume. Like I expect my resume to look like this in 2 years. And that resume I thought, or I felt, would be more compelling for an employer, because it's like, man, I have like all of these skills. I have these professional organizations that I'm part of, and I've also worked on these projects. It's like, how can you say no to that? And so then I can work backwards and like from there and say, what do I need to do that? And so it's like, okay, I need to join these clubs. I actually need to like work on these projects. So that would kind of help me, so I wasn't just kind of haphazardly working. So again, be intentional as far as your development. Look up things online. Yeah, and my last thing is prepare to be more attractive as early as possible. And so yeah, the earlier the better. But if you are a graduating senior, I think the challenge then becomes, what can you do to enhance your resume if you do see that there is some type of deficit? Talk to people, say like, hey, where do you think I fit as far as like my probability of being seen by a recruiter? And then another question could be like, what do you think I'm best like compatible with? What type of role, what type of position, what type of company? Like, your skills may naturally kind of direct you towards like a specific direction, and maybe that's how you get your foot in the door. And then the other part of this is all about, as a graduating senior, being able to reflect on your experiences and really tease out and pull out all of the meaty, high value statements that you can talk about, right? And so what were all of the projects that you worked on? And again, it'd be better if you did this earlier, but like list out all the projects, and then like what did you do, what skills did you develop, what were some of the soft skills that you had to develop, and really kind of go through each experience and really kind of like try to soak up and process everything that you experienced and make sure you can tie in the relevance within both your resume and also during the interview process. So yeah, that's a Q&A session. So thank you for people who have been messaging me on LinkedIn, and I invite anyone to ask me a question. If you have another question or want me to like expand on some of these questions, throw a comment below. I'd love to elaborate in a future video. I find these like super easy to make. It's kind of a simple thought exercise for me, and I love answering, just like directly answering questions, and hopefully being able to like share the question and the answer so it can help more and more people. So yeah, if you have a question, or if you think of a question that you think other people would have that you think would be valuable, please throw that in the comments below. If you found this valuable, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Yeah, so that's it. Peace.